It is now time for the ALPS Innovation Award finalist session, and we know that this is always a popular session based on your feedback from previous years. So thank you very much. My name is David Summer. I'm one of the co-founders of Kudos, and I have the privilege of chairing the Innovation Awards Committee. I'd like to thank MPS once again. MPS generously sponsor these awards for the last couple of years, so we're very grateful to MPS. Thank you. This year, ladies and gentlemen, has been a record-breaking year. We had 45 applications for the awards, and that is the highest we've ever had. And it's not just been the quantity, the quality has been extremely high this year as well. So we are delighted with our 45 applicants. And each applicant submits a very, very detailed proposal, evidence, details, images, all the rest of it. But in addition to that very detailed submission, they provide a statement of innovation, which is a short summary in plain language about what the innovation is about. And this year, we've published all of those statements of innovation on the website. So you can actually look at all 45 of those if you want to, and see why each one is innovative and click through to it as well. For our finalists, our 6 finalists, we also have a guest blog post that's featured on the website, so you can read more about each of the finalists as well. I'd like to take a moment just to acknowledge the judging panel. So these are 10 extraordinary people who help judge these awards. They come from the US, the UK, and Europe. And I'm very pleased to say that we have a good sort of gender balance there as well. 40% women, 60% men, so not quite there yet, but we're getting there. And these are people that give 3 to 4 days of their time every year to read 45 applications, to score them, to evaluate them, to come up with questions, to meet, to agree a finalist list, and then to actually be there for the presentations as well. So it really does take a lot of effort, and I'm really staggered by the thoroughness and the robustness, the integrity of the process. So could we take a moment to acknowledge our judges? So this year we have 6 finalists, and in this session you're going to hear from each of those for 5 minutes, and 5 minutes precisely. So coming up, you're going to hear from Annotations for Transparent Inquiry from Cambridge University Press in association with Hypothesis and Qualitative Data Repository, which is a lot to say. So Nisha is going to be presenting that in a moment. We'll hear from Code Ocean, presented by Pierre Montagano. We'll hear about Dimensions from Digital Science, and Christian Herzog is going to speak. We're going to hear from Andrew Pitts from PSI about their IP Intrusion Database. We'll hear from Sioux Cumming from INASP about the journal publishing practices and standards. And then finally, we'll hear from Ben Kaube from Clarivate on Kopernio. So, many congratulations to all 6 of those. It was an extremely high quality year. So even to be nominated is something significant. So let's acknowledge our 6 finalists. Okay, so we're going to get started. So first up, Nisha Doshi from Cambridge University Press is going to talk about Annotations for Transparent Inquiry. Nisha.
Thank you very much. So as David has already said, Annotation for Transparent Inquiry is a bit of a mouthful, so henceforth I'm going to be referring to it as ATI for short. It's long been possible to present quantitative data alongside research articles, but ATI is the first major attempt to achieve similar transparency for qualitative research. I'd like to talk you through an example to illustrate the problem that ATI is intended to solve. The researcher, Joseph O'Mahony, spent months combing through the British National Archives to try to understand the development of British policy during the Bangladesh Liberation War. He published a paper drawing on dozens of historical documents, so things like cabinet minutes, memos, foreign service cables. But for the reader of his article, these sources, and also the author's logic for using them, could be a bit of a black box. It's not clear to the reader why the author selected a particular document or set of documents, and often word limits don't allow authors to go into this level of detail in an article. So does a cited source actually contain the information the author claims? It's possible that a quotation might be taken out of context. A reader might simply want to delve deeper, reading the sources in full rather than relying on summary information included in the article. But without travelling to London to visit the archives themselves, our readers can't verify the evidence for the author's claims, or delve into the detail of his data in full, and fully take advantage of the data he's collected as part of his research. So the solution to this is Annotation for Transparent Inquiry, and it provides a framework for enriching research based on qualitative evidence by allowing readers to follow authors' analytic process and access their data. And we do this using the Hypothesis Annotation tool, which is displayed as a collapsible panel alongside the content. Each ATI annotation contains some or all of the following, and you can see an example here on this slide. So an analytic note, explaining how and why a particular source was used or a particular approach was taken, a source excerpt, a translation of that source excerpt if needed, a link to the full data source in a repository, and also a citation. And these data sources can be all sorts of different things. They could be interview transcripts, audio clips, maps, all sorts of different types of material. But you might ask, well, why would authors want to do this when surely this creates yet more work for them, and it's not as if they're not overburdened already? Well, you can see here some tweets from some of the authors who've been involved in this initiative so far. Partly, it's about having the opportunity to showcase the work they've already done and explain their analytic approaches in full without being constrained by word limits. Partly, it's a way to comply with funder mandates. The first articles using ACI were launched in April of this year, and usage of some of the articles doubled after the annotations were launched. We've been told that the annotated articles are being used by lecturers to teach students the methodology of qualitative research. As David mentioned, ATI was conceived and launched as a partnership between three founding partners, the Qualitative Data Repository, or QDR, another acronym, Hypothesis, the annotation tool, and also Cambridge University Press. But the intention is that ATI can be used by authors regardless of where they want to publish their paper. ATI and the underlying annotation tool are based on open standards and open source technology, and already 5 other publishers are starting to make use of ATI, including MIT Press, the University of Chicago Press, Springer Nature, Sage, and Elsevier. You'll be pleased to know this is my final slide. Meanwhile, the 3 founding partners are working on ways to expand the possibilities for ATI. So I've been talking about research articles so far, but we're now starting to explore the use of ATI for books and preprints as well. We started by adding annotations retrospectively to articles that have already been published, but we're now looking at integrating ATI further into the research and authoring workstream. And that includes things like integration with authoring tools, manuscript submission systems, peer review, and production. As part of this, QDR launched the ATI Challenge, to encourage participation by authors who are still in the process of writing and revising their manuscripts. Working with these authors and understanding how they want to use ATI is helping us improve our workflows, our instructions, and our technology. And I have to say that the response to the ATI Challenge has been really overwhelming. QDR received more than 80 applications across 5 continents and from disciplines in the humanities, social sciences, and STM, as you can see from the slide here. And we believe that the diversity, the number, and the quality of applications to that challenge really does show that ATI meets a need recognised by qualitative researchers worldwide. I think I probably have my 5 minutes. Thank you.
So next up is CodeOcean, and please welcome Pierre Montagano, who's going to speak about CodeOcean. Pierre.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for having me. So I'm actually going to slip over this slide, and I'll start out with a quote from David Donahoe. And I think it's a very thought-provoking quote, and it was actually said all the way back in 1998, where he said, an article about computational science in a scientific publication is not the scholarship itself. It is merely advertising of the scholarship. The actual scholarship is the complete set of instructions and data which generated the figures. So I don't know if I necessarily agree that the narrative is merely advertising for the scholarship. It's a very important part of the scholarship. But I think the point here is that in order to give researchers a complete record of the scholarship, we have to start including more than just the narrative. And if we jump ahead 20 years now, this was a quote by Victoria Stodden, who's a reproducibility expert in our field, and she was doing a joint workshop at Columbia University with CodeOcean, and she made 2 claims. Virtually all published discoveries today have a computational component. The second one, she said, is that there's a mismatch between the traditional scientific process and computation, leading to reproducibility concerns. She's really talking here about what a lot of people have coined a reproducibility crisis in science. And CodeOcean was created in order to tackle part of this problem. And we're really focused on code and curating code, but not in a flat way, but in an executable format. And why is code important? Code is important because as our data becomes larger and larger and more complex, researchers are having to deploy code in order to analyze data. So there's been a lot of talk about data, but if we're curating the data without actually without the instruments in which it was used to analyze the data, then we're actually only curating half of the research. Code is extremely important. And when you do like a search in things like Science Direct for one programming language like MATLAB, you get over 200,000 results returned. If you do that same search in Oxford, you get 10,000. Taylor and Francis, 20,000. So code is prolific, and that's only one programming language. There are many different programming languages that researchers program in. Right? And so what CodeOcean does is help create a more complete scholarly record by including both the code and data along with the narrative. And we do that by embedding the code and data directly into the narrative. And here's an example from Cambridge University Press. This is a political science and research methods. So just to emphasize, code is not just for STM. It extends outside of STM, and social sciences deploys a lot of code in their analysis. Here, within the article, you will see the CodeOcean widget, which on the top left-hand side, you have the code files, on the bottom left, the data, and then actually the window in the middle, you actually have the code. That's a sandbox. Researchers can go in, they can augment the code, they can augment the data, they can bring in new data sets. But the beauty is you can see that run button on the top right-hand side. Researchers can execute the code in real time directly from the article. Right? Now, if we jump straight over, it's like a widget, just like a YouTube widget that you embed on a page. You can jump over into the CodeOcean side, and here you can see the full widget, which has the code, the data, and the results. But what the real magic of CodeOcean is this little environment tab here, and what we're helping facilitate in researchers, and when they deposit their code in CodeOcean, that they not only deposit their code and data, but all the other dependencies and the environment that went along to execute their code. And this is the stuff, because researchers in a lot of ways, in many cases, are not coders by nature. So the way in which we're facilitating this is here, you know exactly what packages, you know exactly what dependencies were used in order to run this code, right? We also preserve the code within clocks as well. So we support a wide range of use cases. We support open languages as well as proprietary languages. We're built off of Linux and Docker, so we're containerizing the code so it runs. Everything is self-contained within our compute capsule. We're also introducing live machines as well for Jupyter and RStudio, and you're also able to open Jupyter Labs as well, so launching real-time sessions right from your computer. Online execution platform that integrates with any scholarly platform. Authors can publish their code and data. The widget can be embedded in any article. Code can be used to be submitted for peer review. Now, reviewers don't have to set up the environment. Users can start building upon their findings. And we give it a DOI, and it's all open access. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next up is Dimensions from Digital Science, and Christian Herzog is going to talk. Christian.
Thank you very much for allowing us to present here today. Dimensions has been realized as an unusual project by 6 digital science portfolio companies over the last 24 months. But not only that, we also worked with a large group of development partners, pulling in more than 100 research organizations and funders, or the individuals representing them, to learn the most we can about their use cases and needs. Key aspects which we wanted to change for publishers and other groups is that the data relevant for the research activities are siloed. So grants in various databases, one per publisher, if it in a worse situation, publications, patents, clinical trials, and we wanted to change this to create a rich, contextualized and interlinked data scenario. Also, a cross-publisher open discovery platform, perhaps if you would consider Google Scholar as one I would need to make an exception here, is not existing. So we wanted to create an openly accessible discovery platform for researchers and to bring the siloed data together in order to support processes and the research process in general. For decades, that has been the focus, publications and citations, to look at research in order to measure impact. But there's much more, and that's what we want to capture with Dimensions, in order to be able to see the input, the research happening, conferences where preliminary results are presented, the data sets, the publication as a cornerstone, immediate feedback, delayed feedback via citations from the scientific community, the translation to clinical cures tested in clinical trials, patents as a commercial application, and then perhaps even policy documents at the end. And with Dimensions, we integrated these content sources, which you see here, 97 million publications with 1 billion citations, which are openly available, but also 4.1 million grants covering 1.3 trillion in funding, and other data sets like patents, clinical trials, policy documents, and altmetric data. But I don't want to focus on the records which we put together, because that would be boring. The team invested a lot of work in actually creating the links between those, identifying where one publication is referenced by a patent, by a grant, by a clinical trial, because that allows to actually see the trajectory of research happening and what action triggered the next one. And this is what is publicly available if you go to app.dimensions.ai, the 97 million publications searchable, and with a lot of analysis. If you are at an institution which is contributing a little bit on an annual basis to the tool, the capabilities are even more. You can search at the same time through publication grants, patents, clinical trials, and policy documents, in this case, antimicrobial resistance. We are contextualizing each article as much as we can to show the metrics, alt metrics, the cited publications, citing publications, supporting grants, patents, and clinical trials to really show the context. And if you are searching for antimicrobial resistance, you can immediately see which funder is putting which amount or what is the global funding for antimicrobial resistance. Over time, you can see how it developed over time. And also, if you are applying a few other filters, for example, which grants are active this year and in the coming years, because that gives you immediately a view into the future, the intended research, which will transform to publications perhaps in a couple of years. And you can then see very clearly, for example, which UK-based institutions received in the area of antimicrobial resistance funds from which publisher, and go down on a people level if you want to too. Or look at one institution where you see on the top the entire representation of Ghent University in Dimensions, and in the lower box you see what Ghent University is doing in the area of antimicrobial resistance, again being able to drill down to papers, people, and other elements. This is the tool, but we are also providing the metrics API and Dimensions badges so that publishers or everybody else can contextualize a publication in other platforms by just embedding the badge or the metrics into their site. For example, an example from MIT Press or Intech Open where a book is contextualized. And last but not least, I said that access to full text was also one of our reasons. So we implemented in Dimensions that open access articles can be clicked immediately, but also libraries are able to integrate the information about their holdings in the back end, which enables us, as soon as we know via single sign-on verification that the user comes from a university, we are able to display in the result list a button which shows that with one click the researcher can get to the full text, and that on a legal basis even counter-compliant and providing data back to the publisher. Again, Dimensions is about the linkages. It was only a start. We have many more plans and are also looking forward to continue to work with publishers on the future developments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian. So next up is IP Intrusion Database from PSI, and presenting it is publishing's very own James Bond, Andy Pitts.
Oh, the hardest thing in this whole thing is trying to explain this in 5 minutes, isn't it? think about it this way. So we've monitored about 1,500 hacks on universities and publishers in the last 12 months. And if there had been a way that the exact details of all those hacks could have been communicated between publishers and universities, how many of those could have been prevented? Probably lots. So that sums it up quickly. But anyway, why do we need an intrusion database? It's all over the press. You all know. You've all been hacked yourselves. You know how many universities have been hacked. It's huge. So, intrusions. The cost to publishers. As we all know, license negotiations are being impacted now because a lot of people are saying, well, why should I pay a lot for your stuff when I can get it free from that mad Russian woman, right? It's the skewing of usage metrics. That is really important as well because you may think that you have lots of usage from libraries, but how much of that is exact readership and how much of that is hacks? Publishers, as I know, are spending a tremendous amount on court battles in a kind of a whack-a-mole process of trying to take down URLs and trying to sue people that are protected by certain governments. The validity of content. Do people really know what they're reading is the latest version or a proper version, etc.? And, you know, the negative press that a lot of publishers get when they do block people inadvertently when it's no fault of the university themselves is a big problem. Cost to libraries. We've spoken to dozens and dozens of libraries. Again, the usage metrics thing is really important. It can bump libraries up tiers and therefore they get charged more by publishers. Also, they're losing a tremendous amount of usage that they would want to use for making their assumptions about which journals to take next year because people are going off to Sci-Hub, right? Hardware costs. We've been told by lots and lots of universities that when they do get hacked, and people get in with stolen credentials to people's computers, they have to wipe the computers. They've found malware placed on computers. Profiles are changed, people's cell phone numbers are changed so that the second factor authentication goes through to their mobile phones and not the real ones. It's a huge issue. IT systems are slowed when they face these password cracking attacks. We see them in 48 hours where they hammer away at proxy servers and university servers trying to get in with stolen credentials. Loss of access. You know, we hear where people come in to the university at the weekend hoping to catch up on their research and they've been hacked and one of the publishers has blocked it and they've not been able to do their research. So again, that's a huge thing. It impacts open access usage as well because if all the usage is going to a place that doesn't provide you with any interesting metrics, then how are you supposed to tell the funders how many times your articles have read and who they've been read by and what the reach of those articles are? What we do see a lot of is those stolen credentials that are hacked being spread all over the dark web. Apparently about $75 you can get for a set of stolen credentials that work. Your usernames and passwords are spread all over the place. We track about 29 sites, Iranian, Chinese, and Russian mostly, sites that are trading in usernames and passwords that have been hacked by these people. Staffing costs and, you know, the sheer fact that your patrons are having their personal credentials stolen and used and shared around the web is a huge cost. So our intrusion database. So it's a tool that helps publishers and libraries prevent intrusions. The IP Intrusion Service takes the academic research community can work together to fight against hackers, spammers, password crackers, scrapers, and most importantly, piracy and spear phishing attacks. The Intrusion Database exposes cybercrime across the academic research community with the added benefit of reducing service interruptions from blocks. And this new service also protects publishers' copyrighted content. How many of you know how much of your content is just up on Sci-Hub? Probably about 95%, right? And then probably all of the brand new stuff goes up there within hours. How does it work? I'm not going to go through all of that because I don't have the time. But basically, we upload details of all of these hacks. We find out the owners of the people that are doing the hacks. In various different ways. We have a really clever way of detecting, especially our friend Alexandra when she gets into servers, and then we notify the universities. The universities then do what they need to do and pass the details back to us. We put it in the database, and then very quickly we spin that right back out to everybody. And we can do this in real time. We give people alerts on their phones as to when people are in their systems with stolen credentials. So yes, PSI intrusion allows publishers and libraries. Oh, let's go. Here we go. And why should we win this award? Why not? So yes, we offer significant value to the publishing community. It's a truly collaborative approach between libraries and publishers, and us sat in the middle, that will give the industry an opportunity to think ahead and try and stay one step ahead of the cyber criminals. It also offers the academic research community a unique opportunity to work together to fight all sorts of cyber crime. And every intrusion that's reported within the database will provide the whole academic community with an opportunity to actually start fighting back.
So next up is Journal Publishing Practices and Standards, and Sue Cummings is going to speak to that. Sue.
Right. Hi. Thank you very much to ALPS for putting us on the final list for this, because we feel that it is really important that research from the Global South is recognized and is made available because of the equity that it provides within the scholarly publishing landscape. We feel that it is vitally important for Southern researchers to have the opportunity to publish their research and for it to be discoverable by other local and international researchers. But we feel it's important because that research contributes to development needs in terms of climate change, increasing crop outputs, tropical diseases, and so on. So it is very important that the journals in which they publish are seen as being credible and reputable. But Southern journals face a number of problems, and so far today we've been talking very much about the Northern landscape. So I'm very pleased to highlight some of the Southern problems. They are very much underrepresented in the international indexes, such as the impact factors. Very few are included. They lack familiarity with the publishing practices that most of this audience takes as the norm. And as a result, many legitimate but unfamiliar journals are very often wrongly labeled as being predatory journals. These journals lack financial underpinning, and they lack structural support in terms of internet access, language skills, and a variety of other problems. So as a result of this, African Journals Online and INASP got together to develop the Journal Publishing Practices and Standards, which consists of a far-reaching set of criteria for assessing journals from the South and allowing them to compete or to be a part of the global publishing arena. I'd like to introduce here Susan Murray, who is the Executive Director of AJOL, who in this quote highlights that one of the strengths of this initiative is an understanding of the local contexts, because INASP and AJOL have been working with Southern journals for over 25 years now. I'm from Zimbabwe, Susan is based in South Africa, so we know the local contexts. This initiative seeks to reassure readers and authors of these journals about the international standards that they are meeting up to a particular level. But more than that, it is a framework which guides the editors to assist them and help them to improve the quality of their journals. So it's not just an assessment and a badge, but it's helping the journals to get better. So we use over 100 criteria that were identified from a number of international journal indices. This is not rocket science. Sorry, that went forward quickly. From indices like DOAJ, Cielo South Africa, Clarivate, Scopus, WAME, they're all using more or less the same standards. I don't know why it keeps going forward. But we also got a lot of feedback from journal editors in Africa. Finally, we got to the slide. These are the badges. There is a 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star. And then we also have 3 categories for new titles, which are not assessed until they have a 2-year track record, inactive journals that haven't published for a year, and no stars for those that are still working to reach the basic level. The process is that the journal is assessed by experts in international publishing, and so far we have assessed 900 journals from Central America, Africa, and South Asia, and Mongolia. We then develop a report which is sent to the individual editors so that they can see which areas they need to improve. The badge is then displayed on their website, and they are added to an official list. So if a journal is not on that list, then it has not been assessed and given a badge by AJOL and INASP. So just a quick run through of what it looks like. The website on the left is from NEPJOL, Nepal Journals Online, and the badge is displayed next to the name of the journal. In this case, it's a 2-star journal, and if you click on that badge, it takes you to an explanation of what that means, what that journal is doing, the criteria that it meets. On this same website, the Journal Quality website, we have the official list of assessed journals. So if the journal is not in this list, then it's not displaying a legitimate badge. So all the badges are listed there, and there are links, obviously backwards and forwards to the journal sites. We've had an excellent response from the editors, better in fact than we'd expected. That they are enthusiastic about this. It's almost put in an element of competition, that they're competing against each other, that they're striving to achieve better, as Dr. Abhayadira from Sri Lanka shows in this quote, that they're changing their own policies in line with the reports that they receive. So to finish up, I've included this slide, which is of the managers of the Journals Online project. These are the journals that are included in this project. They come from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Mongolia, Nicaragua. Well, the Central Americans aren't in this slide. But in terms of next steps, we're in the process of running an online course for journal editors. That will be starting next week. And of course, as usual, as a development charity, we're looking for funding to continue this project and extend it beyond just the JOLs that we're working on. So thank you very much.
And finally, our final finalist is from Kopernio. Ben is going to talk from Clarivate Analytics. Ben.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to come here and to talk a little about Kopernio. But what I want to focus on is a specific problem that I personally experienced while doing my own research. I'm, of course, referring to the challenge of accessing full text. And I thought the best way to try illustrate this is to invite you all to come with me to go together on a PDF hunt. So you can see I've picked a reference there, and we're all going to see how long it takes us to find the corresponding full text. And we can do what many people do when they want to find something online, and that's let's go to Google and see where our hunt takes us. And we're all feeling lucky this evening, so let's click on the first link. And obviously we don't get through to the full text just yet. We get through to PubMed, and we can see the title corresponds to the article we want. The abstract looks good, but we need at least one more click to get through to the full text. So then we end up on the publisher platform, and it takes us a few seconds to orientate ourselves. Where do we get access to the full text PDF? And then some of you might have spotted the little PDF button right in the center of the page. So we click on it, and now the next step is authentication. And many researchers, myself included, will scratch their head and think, what is my access management federation? Should I be using Shibboleth, or should I be using Open Athens? Can I remember my custom ID? And many people at this point grow frustrated, and they're going to say, back. let's go to Google. And don't worry, we're not going to go through all 20,000 results here. But let's have a look at least the second one in this particular results page. And again, we end up on a different platform, not the publisher platform. In this case, it's ResearchGate. And we see a big inviting blue button in the top right-hand corner, inviting us to get the full text. When we actually click on it, we don't get the full text. We get invited to create a ResearchGate account, which we don't really want. So you can see it says yet another PDF cul-de-sac. To summarize, we've been on 4 platforms. We've clicked on at least 12 different things. We spend at least a minute of our lives already trying to find the PDF, and we've actually come up empty-handed. So is it any wonder that people look to platforms like Sci-Hub and think, gosh, that's actually quite a good user experience? And this is a big problem. This didn't just affect me, this affects 10 million researchers every year, something like 250 times. But at Kopernio, we're optimists, so we see this as 2.5 billion opportunities to delight researchers, and that's exactly what we want to do with Kopernio. So let me tell you a little bit about how it works. Kopernio is a browser extension that travels with the researcher as they go about their workflows online. And Kopernio integrates with over 20,000 different platforms, including publisher platforms, institutional repositories, preprint servers, scholarly collaboration networks, and provides a one-click shortcut straight through to high-quality journal content delivered via publisher subscriptions and from, also from OA publishers. And the neat thing is that no matter where you are, you get a consistent user experience. You don't have to worry about authentication because Kopernio integrates with your institutional holdings and institutional on-campus and off-campus access technologies to ensure that you get a consistent experience from one click straight through to the PDF. Now, why is this good for researchers, publishers, and librarians? Well, for researchers, it's pretty obvious because you get really convenient access to high-quality journal content no matter where you are. And it just saves you a lot of time and a lot of frustration. And that's also good for publishers because publishers get increased reach for their content onto third-party platforms where they wouldn't normally have any access to. And that's, of course, good in terms of usage, and that leads to an increase in counter-compliant downloads. And finally, this is also good for librarians because libraries invest a lot in content, and they want to make sure that their collections have the maximal impact and are creating as much value as possible. And so making those collections available to researchers at the point of need is obviously something really useful. So I hope I've given you a taste for how Kopernio can be useful for the whole research ecosystem. But I also want to give you an idea that we are definitely on track when it comes to our objective of delighting researchers. So I just want to finish my talk off with this slide showing you just some of the nice feedback that we've been getting from Kopernio users around the world recently. We ran out of inches on the slide to add more, but it gives you an idea that we'd like to think we're at least on track to deliver something that will delight researchers.
So I think you can see we had our work cut out on the judging panel to try and choose between those six excellent presentations, very, very worthy finalists, I think you'll agree. I'll be announcing the results. I won't say winner or winners, I'll just say results tomorrow night after the dinner, just before the Gettymeister takes to the quiz floor with his devilish quiz.